morning. Welcome to Humanity Meets Business, Business Therapy with Christine Savo. So excited to announce our guest today. I'm with Jeff Johnston. So Jeff Johnston has a pretty interesting story. On October 4th in 2016, the trajectory of Jeff's life changed with one phone call. Prior to that day, Jeff was living the American dream. He had a great family, was a successful entrepreneur running a financial services firm in Iowa, and was seemingly coasting through life. The morning of October 4th, 2016, Jeff received the phone call that is every parent's worst nightmare. His oldest son, Seth, had died from fentanyl poisoning. He was 23 years old. Jeff soon realized that he had two options. He could go down the road of anger and despair and become bitter, or he could use his situation as motivation to become better. He chose the latter. Jeff decided to take a step back from his career as a financial advisor and focus his attention toward making a difference. He became an advocate for bringing awareness to substance use and addiction in teens and young adults. He began speaking at high schools and community events. He joined the board of a local treatment facility that Seth spent time at before his death. In 2020, Jeff found his own nonprofit, Choices Network, Ltd., dedicated to educating kids, parents, and teachers and coaches on the importance of making positive choices. That same year, he wrote his first book, This One's for You, An Inspirational Journey Through Addiction, Death, and Meaning, and started the Living Undeterred Project. Jeff is currently organizing the Living Undeterred Tour with the goal of building a network of contacts and resources to help develop alternative solutions to mental health and addiction crises. So Jeff, wow, what a story to even start with. And, thank you for being just so raw and real about what you've been through. And anyone that can kind of take what tragedies have happened to them and try to empower and better the world with it, or those are my heroes. To me, those are the true heroes in the world. So thank you so much for being here. And, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on what happened. I mean, that was 2016, kind of where are we now? Maybe a little bit of in between.
Well, thank you, Christine, for having me on the show. I very much appreciate it. Obviously, I'm a businessman for 32 years of my life, building up a wealth management firm. And then all of a sudden, like a lot of people, things just changed very rapidly. And, my son was on a 6-year addiction journey when he was given Adderall at 16 years old for attention deficit. And I have attention deficit as well. And for me, I've always looked at it as a superpower. And for some reason, my son didn't. And that opened the door to addiction. And the 6-year battle, I talk about this in the book. And then, to compound things, because when Seth died, my wife and I and my other 2 boys, I had to present this narrative to him that there had to be a better option, a better road to go on. So I came up with this 2 roads metaphor, and I presented it to the boys the day Seth died as such. I said, boys, we have, one of 2 roads to go down. We have one road of anger, despair, and hatred, and we'll become alcoholics and addicts ourselves, or we have a road of inspiration and motivation. And this can be the single greatest influence in our lives and those around us. I'm on the second road. I ask you to join me. And I presented it honestly that clean the day that Seth died to the boys, because I figured as their dad and as my wife's husband, this was the thing I've been training for my whole life. This is the moment that, it's the moment that you can't mess up. You can't fumble the ball. I'm on the 1-yard line, and my boys needed a superhero, and they just lost their brother. The reality was, Christine, my wife and I were functional alcoholics our whole lives. And I was married 21 years and I've been drinking since, 8th, 9th grade. And my wife and I basically went downhill the first 14 months after Seth died. I stopped working, stayed at home. I was lucky. I own the company. So, I can do that, which is, I understand most people aren't in that position and I respect that, but I drank myself almost to death. And on December 24th, 2017, I realized that I needed to quit. So I just stopped and I quit. As an alcoholic, I've never had a drink since. And it's been the easiest thing I've ever had to do in my life. Unfortunately for my wife, it didn't work out too well. I quit to really support her and show her it can be done. And on June 29th of last year, I buried my wife of 21 years at the age of 46. She weighed 80 pounds when she died. And so, I know it is a tragic story, but every time in my life something happens, something else is born. And so I'm trying to show people, not tell them or teach them, but show them that it's possible to live an inspired life in spite of what inevitable things happen. Death is happening to all of us. And we have this odd sense, a poor relationship with death. And we kind of expect it to be convenient or in the right order, and it doesn't work that way. And so I'm just trying to look at changing the narrative as really changing our minds, changing our mindset. We don't have to participate in the way society's told us how to grieve, or how death can, be the ending. It doesn't have to work that way. So yeah, I started this podcast called Living Undeterred, which has been amazing. I wrote a book, and now the tour we have coming up, which I can talk about in a few minutes. That's the most incredible, most humbling thing I've ever been able to be involved with.
Wow. So this is coming from a deep place in you. And so often that is the case for most people, right? It's like, I even asked someone in my practice today, I said, well, does it hurt bad enough to change yet? And change is typically propelled by pain. So for you, it's like, okay, I'm going to take my pain and I'm going to make it productive. But I really appreciate that you honor the path for the people that it's not so easy just to drop the bottle, right? It's not so easy to, stop working or whatever the cases are. You recognize that there was some things that you had that others don't, but yet also it sounds to me kind of like paving the path, showing the way of this is possible. So I'm kind of curious. You mentioned you have other children. How are they handling all of this? Because you're the adult in the room going through these two significant losses, which is hard. Yeah. But what has this been like for, your other children?
I have learned more from them than they've learned from me. My two boys are just absolutely amazing. My middle son is a golfer at the University of South Dakota. He raised $50,000 while in high school. His older brother died on the day of districts, Ian's sophomore year, 2 miles from where he was golfing that day. And so, that's been an important thing for Ian through golf to raise money. So Ian is amazing. He raised $50,000 while still in high school for mental health, substance abuse, and awareness and addiction. And he won the Jerry Cole Sportsmanship Award, which is the highest honor in junior golf in the world. And they picked one kid in the world, male or female, to win it. And Ian won it. And he got to go to Florida and speak at the Rolex All-American Banquet. And, my wife and I, my son Roman, flew down there, and it was a great moment to watch my son just lean into chaos. And the reality is that we all can do that. I mean, I am nothing special. I know people like to look at me and think I have it figured out. I don't. I had a brush with suicidal ideation over Christmas. I mean, just as recently as 4 months ago. And I talked about it on my podcast, and I shared it in my blogs, just to show people that, I am human. People think based on what I'm doing that I've got this thing conquered. You mentioned change. I don't believe in change. It's evolution. It's adaptation.
Yes, I like that even more.
It's my third tenet, or my third pillar in my living undeterred mindset is expectations, preparation, and evolution. And again, I just don't want to fight upstream in my life. I know death's coming, and I know it's coming in an order that typically isn't conducive to convenience. And I accept that. I lean into it. And I'm 56 years old. I'm arguably at the best place I've ever been in my life. My mom died in November too, over Thanksgiving. She's 89, and my mom is the sweetest human on the planet. So, death again entered my life as an opportunity, not as a punishment, not as, woe is me and all that. So I talk a lot about framing because I'm a Stoic philosopher in a way. I studied Stoicism back in college, and the way that they frame situations in your life. So I have a sentence, Christine, that I just love. And at the end of my talks, this is my closing statement for a sentence. I say, I have one sentence that will change the trajectory of your life. How you answer this question will determine the quality of the rest of your life. And here's the question: do things happen to you, or do things happen for you? Simple question. So any event in your life, you can say, woe is me. Why did this happen? Why wasn't it somebody else? Blah, blah, blah. The government did it, drug cartels, whatever. And you're a victim all of a sudden. Now I'm a victim. And that victim mindset is the bitter road. And so the better road is the victor mindset. That's the person saying, you know what, my son died. There's for a reason. I don't know what the reason is. I have no idea. And I don't believe in waiting for the reason. I'm going to make my own reason. And that's what we did. My family and I got together. We got this tour coming up in 3 weeks where we're going around the United States for 95 days in a 34-foot RV, fully wrapped, Living Undeterred US tour, changing the narrative on mental health. And I'm raising $1 million. I'm giving half it back to the states that support me, the 50 states that support me. And I'm writing a book called 50 Stories in 50 States. I'm going to highlight one amazing story in each state. And I had a reporter ask me the other day, Jeff, what problem are you trying to solve? you talk about change the narrative. What does that mean? That's so dramatic. I mean, why are you doing the tour? And I got to thinking, I kept falling for this trap, these stupid questions people not stupid, these naive questions people ask. It's a setup. No matter how I answer, they're going to find something to challenge me. So I've learned now to not answer those questions with an answer. I answer them with either another question or a statement. So this reporter asked me, what problem are you trying to solve? And my answer was, if what we were doing was working, I wouldn't be doing the tour. Mm-hmm. If what we were doing was working, I wouldn't be doing the tour. Every statistic across the board, unless you find some really odd one, they're worse than they were a year ago, worse than they were 5 years ago, worse than it was 10 years ago. Suicide, depression, anxiety, alcoholism, drug overdoses, you name it, everything is worse. And so do we just keep doing what we're doing?
Right.
That's not how I want to do it. I don't want to raise awareness, Christine. That it's not, raising awareness isn't working. It's not working. And I used to tell people, do we need another label on a Snickers bar for people to stop eating Snicker bars?
Right.
Awareness is not doing us any good. We need to find ways to make actionable things happen in people's lives. And that's what the tour is about. I want to find the people that aren't just raising awareness. I think I'll raise awareness by accident, by going around the country in our RV. Right. I'm not worried about that. There's enough people doing awareness things. I don't want to do that. I want to make a difference. I want to really move the needle. And I've put all my chips on the table. I'm 56. I don't have a wife. I have, one boy in college. The other one's graduating high school this year. My dad's 90. So I got really nothing holding me back. And so I got a great future ahead of me. I'm excited. I met you today. I'm meeting new people every day. And my life I feel very fortunate. I'm in a position to be able to really find gratitude in my life. And so I think I'm very lucky right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can hear the passion. I can hear this is being fueled by something so deep and stirring inside of you, and I can actually, this might sound weird, but I do feel the presence of your son and your wife pushing this along as well. I do. I feel that energy there, that they are backing this. They know that, on some level, this is all preventable, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. It is.
It is.
And the changing the narrative and the breaking the stigma. And, if it were up to me, every single person would have therapy, and just for some resources, just for someone to talk to, just for a set of eyes. I will tell you, just for a set of eyes, just somebody that you have an appointment with next week, that I say, if I don't see you, I'm going to check on you. I'm worried,
It holds you accountable in a way.
Absolutely.
My two boys both see therapists.
Good. Yeah.
And
awesome.
I don't ask them anything. I just, I don't ask them. How'd therapy go? Good. Now this may surprise you. I've never seen a therapist. I kind of think the circle of people I'm with, talking to you right now, is therapy. So my projects are my podcast is daily therapy. I got 7 recordings this week. My podcast is filled up till October right now. I'm trying to load it up before we go on tour, but I unload on people. You and I have had a great conversation already, and I feel like it's been therapeutic. And then after this, I talk to somebody else, and so maybe that doesn't count as actually therapy, but I tell you what, Christine, it does. Talking to people, whether I pay for advice or not, this certainly helps me a lot.
Yeah. Well, and even as a therapist, I'm definitely not like one shoe for every foot. Do what works for you. Some people it's the gym, some people it's gardening, some people it's having a close-knit group of friends, and some people it's social support like AA, Smart Recovery. And I'm not here to say there's one way that works better than another, but I do believe in human connection, reaching out and being in the room with people that you can trust, tell your real raw story to, that aren't going to necessarily try to fix it. They're going to listen. They're going to hear you. They're going to support you. And maybe if they have a couple ideas, they might share that too. But really the idea of we're not alone.
Right.
And so much of addiction, depression, anxiety, this is the life that I live every day, all day, treating it, is this overarching aloneness.
I'm a big fan of Johann Hari, and he said the opposite of addiction is. Now, when I do my presentation on the tour, I'm going to throw that question out and wait for people to answer. And what do you think everyone's going to say? The opposite of addiction is
sobriety.
Yeah. Being clean, sobriety.
Yeah.
He says, no, the opposite of addiction is connectivity.
Yes.
So many people take to their grave dark secrets and issues and problems and through suicide. And I think by being vulnerable, and again, I cry all day long. I'm a grown man and we're not supposed to. Well, forget that. If you're laughing, crying, and learning, you're having a full day.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I can do all that in spite of bearing a child, bearing my wife, bearing my mom. Who's going to tell me I can't? Who's going to tell me I have to be depressed? Who's going to tell me I have to be sad? Right. I look in the mirror and that's my therapist. That's who I see back. And I'm just, maybe I'm a narcissist. Maybe I'm a control freak. Maybe I'm overly optimistic, but I've always had this thing inside of me that just says undeterred, just Jeff, keep going undeterred. And so life isn't throwing me setbacks or challenges. It's giving me opportunities to become a better person. And that's my mindset. And I don't know what that falls in for a box for, labeling, does that mean I'm a Buddhist or does that mean I'm a, I don't know. I don't even care what people call me.
I love that you bring that up too, Jeff, because I think that part of changing the narrative is actually breaking down the conversations of what is what, right? Mm-hmm. So I was having dinner with a friend a while ago, and it was a newer friend, and they're telling me a little bit about their story. And I was asking some challenging questions, and they said, I don't want to be diagnosed right now. And I just started laughing hysterically. I said, first of all, diagnosis really is just for the insurance companies. If that's a barrier to treatment.
I like that. That's a good point.
I literally have to write a number in a box from the ICD-10 to bill your insurance. Now, do I even remember your diagnosis after our second session? Probably not. You're a person.
I like that.
You're a person. Really, and what you're coming in the room with is your humanity. And what I'm coming in the room with is my humanity. Now, you're looking through certain lenses, and I may have a different view. And really, the power of our conversation is the two different perspectives. So often, what I like to say too, because I work with a lot of people that struggle with suicidality, addictions, all the things, it's like a daily conversation of, are you going to be alive next week? And please be alive next week. But I like to say, when you're in that space, you have tunnel vision. You're at the bottom of the tunnel. And all I'm doing is trying to kind of give you the idea that there's more to it than what you're seeing. So your pain, your problem, your suffering, your grief, your loss of relationship, your loss of job or income, your loss of health, whatever it is, because there typically is some loss there, right? On some level or another, that I'm just here kind of with the flashlight going, hey, it's okay that you're in the tunnel, and right. I'm out here just kind of offering you a step at a time, that when you're ready, able, willing, when all the things come together, that you'll be able to see what I see too. And usually that's what's good in you. So often our tunnel vision is what's bad in us. It's like, I'm
raising my hand.
Wrong. Yes,
I'm raising my hand going, teacher, can I say something?
Teacher, yes, please come in.
Yeah, because attention deficit's the greatest gift I ever had put in my body. I just can't sit still and I'm hyper focused. But you got me thinking about something again. Is the greatest book I've ever read is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Viktor Frankl, yep.
Yeah, and so I was reading the book one day, and I've read it like 4 or 5 times, and I like the phrase that just was my epiphany moment. And this was a year after Seth died. I was trying to find self-help books to get me to do better, because I was really struggling. And he said, suffering is my opportunity. And I thought, bingo. I thought, that's it. That's the magic sauce of what I'm trying to do. That's I couldn't articulate what I was looking my life at. And cause, to me, I was like, I believe in pain, but I really don't, because I believe it's an opportunity, but I couldn't articulate that. And so I read that and I thought, oh man, that's it. That's it. So I did, like I did through college, I plagiarized a little bit. So I reframed it to take ownership of this, this is the way he framed it. And I said, so my saying, Christine, is this: pain is unavoidable, but suffering is a choice.
That's right.
And so that's one of my sayings. My other one is purpose becomes passion when it gets personal. Those are my 2 big sayings I like to talk. I open all my talks with that sentence sets the tone of what I'm going to talk about. Purpose becomes passion when it gets personal. And, for me, this is very personal, obviously, and for millions of other people. But going back to Viktor Frankl, I thought to myself, why do we have to even believe in the concept of grief and pain. I mean, someone says, Kubler-Ross said 5 stages of grief. Well, okay, how about 5 stages of opportunity? Why do we have to buy into these narratives? I mean, and so I've got this odd sense of just impulsive reframing when anything happens to me. I refuse to participate in what I'm supposed to do. And so is that just some odd quirk in my brain? I don't know, but there's got to be a lot of people like me out there that kind of feel that way, but just maybe don't have the platform I have, or don't know how to say it, or maybe they're uncomfortable saying it. But it's like, whenever I feel like it's coming, I tell myself, here it is. This is that moment in front of the boys. This is my opportunity. This isn't depression seeping in. I've never been depressed. I've had massive depressive moments. Over Christmas, I knew it took me 7 seconds to get to my safe and shoot myself. That's how bad it got. But I don't allow myself to say I have depression. I just don't. I have depressive moments, many of them, but I'm just not going. A doctor could say, Jeff, you're depressed. And you can call me whatever you want. Like you said, that's for the insurance companies. I'm not depressed. And again, maybe I am. Maybe I'm manic depressive. Maybe I'm bipolar. I don't really care what people call me. I sleep well. I work hard. I love life. I have great relationships. I've buried people I extremely loved and care about. And that's how I live my day. And so I'm very optimistic that we as a society can look at how we participate in these narratives that we just learned. You go to funerals and everyone's sad, wearing black and crying. And it's like, we don't have to look at death that way. A lot of cultures celebrate death. A lot of religions reward you for going to heaven. Yes. So why are we just, death is just the ending for so many people. And I'm in so many Facebook chat rooms, and God bless these men and women that just can't let go. They just, every moment they're posting pictures of their kids. And I understand it. I see the utility, but for Jeff Johnston, it doesn't work. I post about 2 pictures a year of Seth. I don't need affirmation or validation. What I'm doing is correct. And I know I'm helping people, and I want to make this so not about me. I want to make this about you and about other people, because after a while, if all I do is go around and talk about Jeff Johnston, that's going to run its course. And if I become an interviewer and can talk to people about their stories and be vulnerable, then I think we can start looking at all these things differently. And that's kind of my change the narrative, change our mindset. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. That's kind of the road I'm on. I'm really excited about learning.
Well, Jeff, if I can kind of come in there, as you said, I don't think it's ever a bad idea to offer an alternative. So there's a status quo. There's what the majority does. There's the kind of, there's the expected path. And then there's also these kind of offshoots of like, if that doesn't feel right for you and you're feeling, because a lot of times what I've experienced, I have a grief group. This is very near and dear to my heart. Believe me, I work with death more than the average person. Yeah. And I have probably similar philosophies of, it's more of a honor the time you had together and really have that gracious gratefulness, because all of our time is numbered. Nobody knows. And whether it's a tragic death, unexpected, expected, we all know that we're temporary beings on this planet at this time. They haven't quite figured out, immortality. So it's
Elon will, trust me.
Yeah, Elon will, but it might be past my time, and I'm actually okay with that. But really focusing in on bringing our loved ones with us, living extra because they aren't, enjoying the cupcake that mom used to like, eating the steak that dad used to order, going to the place, and not necessarily for nostalgia, but a lot of times it's being alive in the midst of the grief and the loss. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, that makes all the sense in the world. And I need to be hypersensitive that not everybody, thinks the way I think. And so part of my learning process is being more understanding that, I'm open to a lot of things. I mean, like I said, I'm only 56 and humanity's been around for a long time. And there's a lot of things out there I don't know. And part of what this tour is I'm doing, this 95-day tour, is an exploration. I've got a lot of people trying to back me into a corner, what are you trying to sell? Or what are you promoting? What's your agenda? I'm learning. I'm 5 years into this. 5 years ago, I didn't know anything about this stuff. I'm not a clinician. I'm not a therapist like you are. So I'm really new to this, but I come into it with a really, an interesting sense of reframing. And and looking at, most things that many people would consider as, setbacks and challenges. I look at them as just evolution, just my growth as a spiritual being,
Yes.
and this comes from, I'm an agnostic as well. So I struggle with people trying to figure out if this is driven by a higher power, and my higher power is in my heart. My higher power is my son and my wife. That's my higher power. Now, if that's a God, then so be it. But I've never really been interested in that angle for me, because I just didn't need it. And I understand, like I said, the utility of all these things. And I'm probably, the most intentional agnostic you'd ever meet, because I really do feel that I found my meaning and my purpose and my calling, but it's for a lot of different reasons than a lot of people. And whether you are a, believer in say mainstream religion or you're not, it shouldn't prohibit you from being just a good human, right? I mean, why does it matter? Why does it matter what your belief is, where you go after we die, when we really should be focused on our behaviors while we're here on this earth, not our beliefs? And I just kind of get attached to people that are behavior oriented, and we don't have a lot of conversations on beliefs. And that's why I don't watch TV. I haven't watched any news in 3 years, probably. I haven't watched one news channel. Mm-hmm. I just toxicity in my life, I have no time for. Yeah. And if I turn on TV, I'm just going to get angry. I'm just going to get confused. And so I don't watch it. And all I do is try to read and write and go to podcasts and talk to people like you that, we're having a very good conversation today. And I don't know if anyone listening is going to benefit, but I know I did. And selfishly, a lot of what I'm doing is to make sure that I don't join my son and my wife just yet.
Right.
I'm not ready. I got too much to give back and too much to enjoy. And for selfish reasons, and I'm sure you do the same thing with your podcast when people say, oh, you're helping lots of people. And you say, yeah, but I'm helping myself too.
You know what? It's so funny you say that. You said it earlier, actually, and we're in alignment. I learn just as much every day. I'm alive.
Yeah, right.
As I teach and I share, right?
Right.
Because people really are unique, and we have a lot of things in common, and we have a lot of shared experiences and stories. But as you said, our perspective, how we approach things, is really what makes us different. And the more people we bring to the table, the more options there are. It becomes a buffet instead of a single plate, right? So,
absolutely.
So if I'm grieving and I think there's one way to do it, I'm most likely going to do that. But if I can see that there's maybe even 3 or 4 or 5,
right,
then now I have a choice, and I can go, that first month, I really felt all those things.
Right.
But it's not as hard as I thought. And now I feel guilty for it. And I want to make it hard. And I want to say I'm sad because I don't know what else to do. And we're not granted permission to actually feel how we feel, how we're feeling in that day, in that moment,
right,
with regard to, what our world labels as certain things. So
you see people like Anthony Bourdain and Robin Williams, and you're like, how could they do this? Well, I tell you what, it's not too hard. It's not too hard. The moment you let your guard down or you get overconfident in your therapy. So whatever you're doing, if it's AA, God, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. Don't take shortcuts. That's like my big thing I'm trying to tell people. It's really important to me. Whatever you're doing, just to keep doing it.
I love it. So, with this purpose and passion and personal, Jeff, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you? So your website, your social media, and if they, where they can maybe check out your tour.
Yeah, it's just livingundeterred.com. Undeterred's kind of a goofy word to spell. So it's your spell check will probably fix it. It's www.livingundeterred.org. I'm sorry. livingundeterred.org. And then on LinkedIn, I'm under Jeff Johnston. I have on Facebook, I'm on Jeff Johnston. I'm on Living Undeterred. And my objective is to just keep doing what I'm doing, stay focused, go undeterred, live my life undeterred. But I also want to enjoy life, So I'm meeting new people like you. I really think that the best of my life is ahead of me. And I'm living for the living, but I'm honoring the dead. And I think that's the way we have to look at life in general.
Yeah, there we go. Beautiful. So Jeff, what an amazing, just thank you so much for sharing your path and what this has been like for you, and the uniqueness of your own personal journey and being open to other people's as well. So it's been totally awesome to have you on. Thank you so much for sharing. And this has been Humanity Meets Business Therapy with Christine Salvo, licensed marriage and family therapist, advanced certified mediator, and master practitioner of NLP and hypnosis. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day. morning. Welcome to Humanity Meets Business, Business Therapy with Christine Savo.